Hi, my name's Nick Ballou. I'm a patent attorney. People often come to me and ask me how much a patent costs. The people hear really big number ranges. Some people they'll hear 5,000, they'll hear 10,000, they'll hear, 40,000, 50,000, and all those numbers can be true. There's a really big range for what patents cost. They may cost, between $10,000 and $50,000. And people often ask me how they can help control that and make the cost be more predictable. So I've put together some tips that I think that I'll think help control cost. And I've been working as a patent attorney since 2008. So these tips come from, practical tips that I think, that I've learned in that time. So the first point is to identify the point of novelty of the invention, then provide focus descriptions and drawings for the invention, file with the correct entity size, consider filing a provisional patent application, and choosing a patent attorney knowledgeable in the technical area. So I will be going through each of those topics in more depth. So the first point I want to cover is the point of novelty is the statutory requirements for patentability. So when the patent office gets your patent application, they'll look at your application, they'll understand the invention, then they'll do a prior art search. And in that prior art search, they're going to identify other documents and inventions that are similar to your invention. And first, they're going to do a 35 USC Section 102 analysis. And what they do is they're going to take the prior art and compare it to your invention, and they'll see if there are any differences. And if there are no differences, that means that your invention is the same as what's already out there, and you will not get a patent. If you pass 35 USC 102, that means that there are some differences between your invention and the prior art. So the patent office, they'll identify those differences, and then they'll do an obviousness analysis, and they'll ask the question, would these differences be obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art? And if the answer is yes, then they are obvious, then you don't get a patent. But if your new features that you've added are not obvious, then you do get a patent. So I wanted to show a couple examples of this. This is a patent I found is from Carson Manufacturing, who makes ping golf clubs. So you can see on their figure 1, it's a normal golf club. It has a grip, a shaft, a club head. And then in the figure 5E on the right hand, it shows an exploded view of the club head, and it shows that there's a port with a monitoring device within the club head. So, a lot of parts of that golf club are, out there normal. And then there's the part of the golf club that's new. And at the end of the patent application, you have the claims, and the claims need to go to the point of novelty of the invention. And so if you look in this case, the claim 1, I have a golf club comprising that has a golf club head, a shaft, and then it has a port located in that header shaft. The port configured to receive a monitoring device for measuring, characteristic of a golf swing. So, and then claims 2 and 3, those are, other optional points of novelty of the invention. So when the patent application is filed, the patent attorney works with the patent office in identifying these points of novelty of the invention. And if those points of novelty are identified quickly, then it's going to be much less expensive and you're going to get the patent much quicker. But if the points of novelty, if the patent attorney has to go back and forth with the patent office, then that's going to, increase the time and the cost. And I put in a second example. This is a patent I found, I believe, from Samsung, and it's for a hybrid hard disk drive. And the figure 1, you see that this disk drive has a lot of different components of it. And, you could describe all of these different components, but not all of these components, are necessarily novel. So what you want to do is identify the point of novelty. So the claim 13 has a buffer, an analysis unit, control unit, and it has some more details about the control unit and storage locations. And then it has these other optional features in claims 14, 15, and 16. So again, all of this is, you want to identify the point of novelty, early on in the process, and then that'll help you come to agreement about these claims and get the patent quicker. So obviously, I think a key in identifying the point of novelty is, knowing what technology is out there. And I think there are two ways of doing this. So the first way is you can have knowledge in the technology area. So my first example, is the Ping Golf Club. And so if you're working at Ping, maybe you know what Callaway's doing, you know what Nike's doing, you know what all the competitors are doing. So you know that no one has this monitoring device. So you know what the differences are. You can identify the point of novelty and, let the patent attorney know about that. Otherwise, if you do not know what the point of novelty is, you can conduct a prior art search. And I've listed some, good resources for that. There's the Google patent site, there's the USPTO search, there's the European Patent Office search, the World Intellectual Property Organization search, and then you can also do a regular Google search. And you can use these different sites. If it's a food delivery app, you can put in food delivery app. If it's bicycle, you can put in bicycles. And you can find out what kind of patents already exist out there and what other inventions are out there. And you can compare your invention with these inventions and see what the differences are and the point of novelty are. So then once you identify the point of novelty, you should, clearly provide, those materials to the patent attorney. So you can identify, what you think the point of novelty is. You can identify other optional features that you think are novel. Then you can provide drawings. They don't need to be formal. It can be, hand-drawn on a napkin. It can be like in the paintbrush application. The more drawings, the better. And then, provide available written materials. It could be like a journal article, like an IEEE article. It could be a user guide. It could be an installation manual. And all that will, the more you provide up front to the patent attorney, there's kind of less back and forth for the patent attorney to understand the invention and that they have the materials they need to write the patent application. And, there's one little exception for that. I would say avoid, providing information that's not really relevant to the point of novelty. So that previous example, I had the hard drive, and, there could be a processor, there could be a communication interface, there could be a port, there could be all these other points that you could write hundreds of pages about. But you don't really need to include that, because if all of that's been out there for 20 years, if it exists, then that's not going to help you get a patent. So you really kind of want to concentrate the information on, what the invention is. Next, I say file with the correct entity status. I have some example fees from the United States Patent and Trademark Office fees on the right-hand side tables here. And you'll see that they have a normal fee, then they have a small entity fee and the micro entity fee. The small entity fee is 50% of the normal fee, and the micro entity is 25% of the normal fee. And on the left-hand side here, I have from the USPTO website, what qualifies for a small entity. So for the small entity is normally 500 employees or less. And then for a micro entity, it's if there's an inventor who has 4 or fewer patents and there's some income limits. But if you qualify for these smaller micro entities, then that'll definitely save you on some of the cost. My next point is consider filing a provisional patent application. A provisional patent application, it's not a full patent application. It will never become a patent, but what it reserves your priority date, and it basically gives you the opportunity to file a patent in 12 months. And the provisional applications are often less expensive because there's less formal requirements for drawings. For example, it could be hand drawings. A lot of times, if you did a journal article, that'll cover most of the explanation and that'll cover most of it. So because there's less formal requirements, it costs a patent attorney, there's lower fees for preparing that. And there's also lower fees with the USPTO. And then a time that people like to do this often is if they have a new product and they don't know if it's profitable or not, they can file the provisional application that, preserves their right to file it in 12 months. They can work on the product for 12 months, see if it's going to be profitable. And then if it is going to be profitable, then they can convert the provisional to non-provisional in 12 months. On the right-hand side of this, I asked ChatGPT, what's the price difference between a provisional and a non-provisional application? So I have some information here from ChatGPT. So it says the provisional, it lists the USPTO fees for the micro, the small entity, and large entity, and it has some attorney fees. It says provisional $500 to $3,000, and then a non-provisional $5,000 to $15,000 plus. My next tip is to hire a patent attorney knowledgeable in the technical area. So in the previous examples, I showed you that the point of novelty is really the important part of a patent. And when the patent office, they send you an office action typically, and it'll say what the similar prior art is. And then so the patent attorney will have to analyze that prior art, understand it, and explain how your invention is different than the prior art. So if it's a patent attorney who's not very familiar with electronic devices, if they're not familiar with chemical processes, it could take them, longer to understand the prior art, and they might not actually identify, the key point of novelty. And there'll be more back and forth with the patent office, and that's more time in. So when people hear about the $40,000 to $50,000 patents, a lot of times there'll be a lot of office actions, there'll be a lot of RCEs, there's a lot of back and forth with the patent office, and that kind of what builds up the cost. So I say, patenting invention requires understanding invention, understanding the prior art, being able to explain technology and differences to the patent examiner. You can have increased costs if it takes many attempts to convince USPTO to allow your application. And then also there can be increased costs if the materials are long and unfocused. So if the patent application is, they need to spend time and they're talking about stuff that's not really relevant to the point of novelty, then that's kind of a waste of time. And, if the claims might not be completely focused on the invention, and you might have to, do a lot of claim amendments. So for patent attorneys working at law firms, they typically have a bio section on the law firm website. I've listed mine here, and I've also listed my LinkedIn, and so you normally have a law firm bio and a LinkedIn page, and those will often list the, educational degrees and prior engineering or scientific experience. So you can look, if it's an electrical or chemical invention, you might want to hire someone with an electrical engineering degree, a chemical engineering degree. If it's a biology related invention, you might want to hire someone with biology experience or a biology degree. So you can kind of find the patent attorney who you think will understand your invention and be able to, explain it to the patent office in the least, amount of time, and, very concisely, and just focus on the point of novelties and get the patent allowed quickly. So in summary, some of my tips for reducing costs is, identify the point of novelty of the invention, provide focused descriptions and drawings of the invention, file with correct entity size if you qualify for smaller micro, that'll save you money. You can consider filing a provisional patent application, and then, choosing a patent attorney knowledgeable in the technical area. I have one other video that's currently available. Is it financially worth it to get a patent? And this video is focused on the cost of reducing the cost of a patent. And the other video, it looks, basically at the cash flows and the rate of return and the return on investment, and seeing in what situation, it would be financially worth it to file for a patent application. And I have some ideas for other possible future videos. That's review steps in the patent process, evaluating the strength of a patent. And then I'm also open to taking other suggestions for videos that you might want to see. So thank you very much for watching my video.